fickle, so unpredictable, here on the SNL Network.
Yes, that is right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SNL Network's Hot Take Show, our first Hot Take Show in 2022. We ended 2021 with a little bit of a weird SNL episode, and it's, hard to believe that, just everything that's happened over the last month, but I'm so excited to be here with some great guests to break down everything we are going to see and talk about from the first episode of 2022 with Ariana DeBose and musical guest Bleachers. So joining us on this first podcast of 2022, it's Amanda Mitchell. Amanda, how are you?
I'm just happy to be alive. I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to be with all the A's and a J, including Ariana. I'm happy to be here. Great.
Yeah, we brought in the A team tonight with Amanda,
tonight, straight up,
Andrew,
all
and Anthony.
See?
Yeah, exactly. So
thank you for having me.
Happy that we are live with the A team. Joining us as well is the great Andrew Haynes. Haynes, how are you?
I'm thrilled to be here. First episode of 2022. Hopefully, I've got there's wood all over the place. I'm knocking it. I don't want to jinx it, but just praying that this year is a little better than the last couple. So we'll see.
Yes, exactly. I really hope so. And then also joining us is the great Anthony Conway. Anthony, how are you doing?
I'm good, John. No complaints at all, man. Happy New Year.
Yes, very happy New Year to all of you and to everybody in the chat who joins us just for these hot take shows. Happy New Year to all of you. And I'm very excited to break down what we got to see tonight from our first show with Ariana DeBose. But before I do that, before we get into our hot takes and before we get into the sketches, I want to say a couple things. Number one, is if this is your first time joining us on the hot take show and maybe you decided this year to check in with us, this is how the show works. We're going to get through our hot takes, talk about our headlines for the episode. We're going to go sketch by sketch. We'll bring up some of your comments from the episode, and then we will give our ratings for the evening. So that'll be a little fun thing we do before we break it down later on this week on some of the other podcasts. I also want to say one of the former cast members, a great former cast members, and the current the current announcer of the show, Daryl Hammond, I believe he had an emergency surgery this week. I just want to say that I heard that he's doing okay. From everybody at the SNL Network, just want to wish good health to Daryl Hammond at this time, and just hope you're doing okay, Daryl. So all the best to you. All right. Let's get into our hot takes that we saw from tonight. And Amanda, I will start with you. What is your headline for the evening?
This was one of the blackest episodes of SNL I have ever seen in my entire life. This was a black episode of SNL. I can't describe it other than that. Like it just felt like they just let everyone who was black thrive in this episode. And from I was wondering who they were going to have play Eric Adams. I live in New York, I live in Brooklyn. So I've been watching that man terrorize us for months. And I'm so happy they let Chris Redd be as absurd as Eric Adams is. That was such a spot on impression. What a black episode of television I just sat through. That's all I got to say. That's my headline.
Okay. Oh, well, Haynes, I hope you don't mind if I skip you, but Anthony, do you concur? And what is your hot take for the
Nah, I definitely do concur. I definitely agree with Amanda. Very, very black, very unexpected. Kind of went in with no real expectations for this and really, really enjoyed it. Enjoyed all the musical moments. Yeah, unexpected and black. I think that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Haynes, over to you. What is your headline from the night?
I'm just here for the blackness. It was amazing. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
I think the biggest, listen, I don't know if this is a hot take for most people, but it's a very hot take for me. I genuinely dread song-alogues. I hate the song-alogues. This one was as good as anyone I've ever seen. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. Most of the time, the song-alogues, they bring, I think maybe it was just because typically it's one long song, and so it's kind of the same stupid joke over and over again. This was broken up into a bunch of little bits, and they actually had moments to speak and just get those good jokes in there. So I think for the first time I've ever been on this show, I'm praising the song-alogue.
Okay, that is a very hot take from you, for sure. So thank you for bringing that to the table. We'll get to it. I'm not sure if I felt the same way, but anyways, well, look, it goes hand in hand with what my hot take was for the night, because my expected storyline, and we talked about this a lot on the By the Number show earlier in the week. We started predicting what are we going to see from season 47B. My prediction is we got teased with it in the Billie Eilish episode that Kate McKinnon was going to come back and dominate the second half of the show. And I was wondering if that was going to halt the momentum of what we've seen in the first half of the season. And we definitely saw certain sketches tonight that I would say were very Kate oriented. So there was that aspect of the show. But for me, I didn't know what Amanda or Anthony or Haynes were going to say coming into the show. But I have to say, tonight to me felt like a Chris Redd night of the show. And it wasn't just the Eric Adams stuff for me. So we'll get into it.
Everybody.
But to me, I felt that Chris Redd had probably his most important role ever as an SNL cast member tonight, in addition to the fact that he was putting out just like excellent work. And that's exciting. There's a whole bunch of SNL cast members that us in the community, you guys in the chat, are always telling me, oh, I wish we could see more of. Chris Redd is definitely near the top of that list. I'm excited for what we're going to see from Chris in the second half of the season. So what a great way to start off this second half. So really exciting. Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with our cold open that we saw tonight. And the cold open was a message from the president. We had James Austin Johnson return as Biden. This was the third Biden appearance. We haven't seen this since the Jason Sudeikis and James Austin Johnson co-Bidens together like a couple months ago. So it was interesting to see this back. Amanda, I'll start with you. What do you think about our Spider-Man versus Biden cold open that we saw?
It was too long. It was too long. I wish it was just a little bit shorter. I got the joke after like the first 3 minutes, and I was like, oh yeah, I get it. Cool. Like everyone has COVID. Everyone would just cool. I just thought it was just a missed opportunity for like a first shot back, in my opinion, especially after all the things that have gone down in the past month. Like,
okay, well let me push back a little bit. So what was missing from it that you would have liked to have seen from this cold open?
I was about to say jokes.
Okay, well, yeah.
That's not true. It was funny. I wish it was less repetitive, and. Okay. Because it felt more, it was a showcase. It was a great performance impression showcase. But like in terms of it was just too long. I wanted just it to be cut back ever so much. And you could tell because Weekend Update was so short later on, I felt like that sucked up a solid 2 extra minutes of the episode that it didn't really need to. The point was understood after a while.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to tell our live chat who's watching live, under StreamYard usually allows me to bring up your comments onto screen. There is a little bit of a glitch on StreamYard while we're live, so I actually am not able to bring up your comments onto screen, but please write them in the chat because I will read out some comments about each sketch as we go forward because I still want to make this an interactive experience for all of you, but don't feel bad if I don't bring them up on screen. It's not because we don't want to. Haynes, let me head over to you. Your thoughts on the cold open.
It was okay. There's a few points. One, obviously, we all know how good James Austin Johnson is at impressions. He's amazing. Biden is as good as anything else he's done. And honestly, it's just really great compared to all the other Bidens out there. Dana Carvey has a really good one, but this was, it's just very accurate. I'm kind of with Amanda on the repetitiveness. And it took me a minute to really get where they were going with the Spider-Man thing at first. I did not know where they were going with that. I haven't seen Spider-Man. I don't think maybe I don't hang out with enough Marvel people because I haven't heard that much about Spider-Man lately.
Oh, really? Okay.
I really haven't. I loved the twist at the end with Pete coming in and bringing in the future Joe Biden. I did think that was very fun. So that was the best part of it to me. But like Amanda said, this was a very long sketch, and that little bit that ran was maybe 90 seconds at the end or something. So it wasn't bad. And I think there was a really great impression that it's built around, but the content in the middle wasn't doing a ton for me. It ended on an upswing at least.
Okay. I just think that what's interesting here is like in the history of presidential impressions on SNL, Saturday Night Live has a history of building characters of their presidents. And we saw that the differences between Jason Sudeikis' Biden and James Austin Johnson's Biden previously in this season. It's interesting to see where they're going with JAJ's Biden over here, where they're making him somewhat deranged and they're using this Spider-Man arc. What's happening in the media is that, Biden is using Spider-Man as an excuse for everything that's going wrong. So I do feel like there was something here, Anthony. Were you with the other two here where you felt like there was, too much going on and maybe not enough explanation of proper Biden?
Yeah, I actually agree with both of them. Watching it by the third time that he mentioned Spider-Man, you're like, okay, I get it. It's repetitive. Like, I kind of can get past this. Like, what's happening next? It was refreshing when Pete pops up at the middle of it. I was expecting a Kim K joke to pop up at some point because I feel like that was kind of on everybody's mind and it didn't happen, but that's fine. But yeah, it kind of fell apart for the course. I love James Austin Johnson's impersonation from the first episode till now, but yeah, about 90 seconds into it, you're just like, okay, what's happening next? What's happening next? Okay, let's just get to the opening monologue,
Yes, for sure. And I see Casey in the chat was asking who wrote the cold open, and that was Jostin Shea and Silva wrote the cold open. I think that the biggest thing for me here, I mean, first I will say this. I did enjoy Pete as Joe Biden from The Real World. I actually felt like that did add something to here for me. I did feel like the line about the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series. Was that for me? Was that for me? Why was that in there? But
that was a good one.
Yes. Thank you, SNL, for that. So that was very funny. But I think that the most glaring thing for me is that I was watching it and I didn't hate it, but there was something else in the episode which we made reference to, and we're going to get to it, that really felt like it should have been the cold open. And it's hard not to, I know that's not the way SNL looks at these things, but it's hard not to think about what would have happened if that was the cold open instead. We'll talk about it as we get through the show. Okay. Haynes, let's go over to our monologue. Tell me, you made reference to it. Fight for this. Tell us why this was a great song-alog.
Well, I mean, in short, like I was saying before, we weren't stuck on one very long joke, which sometimes if I'm not in love with the premise of what this whole song is going to be, then it's hard to love every minute of it. And sometimes the songs can go a little long. This was broken up into little bits. We got plenty of jokes in between. And there was one part that was kind of weird. Was she doing a joke when she said 2020 instead of 2022?
I thought that was a mistake.
Yeah, I did too. But there was also a thing recently where Biden said that 2020 is going to be like a really good year or something just a few weeks ago. So I wondered if this was a reference to that.
He had Spider-Man on his mind.
Or if she just screwed up. And I couldn't tell because she didn't correct herself, and she didn't. And if she had corrected herself, maybe she would have done it in a way that indicated whether it was a joke or not. So I didn't get that. But there were some fun jokes in there. Another one that I wasn't 100% clear on, but I'm guessing. I mean, Kate gave her the bump when she said, I feel so pretty and gay, and then she gave her the bump on the gay. So I felt like they were like Kate was maybe tacking onto that more modern meaning of gay. So that was a fun thing, but I wasn't for sure, sold whether it was supposed to be that reference or not. So there's a few things that I was just missing on, but overall, there were some fun jokes, and at least it wasn't long. Like I said, I'd normally hate song-alogs, and even if I can't articulate it in the most brilliant way at this moment, there was something enjoyable about this. It had a life to it, and it was fun, and I was enjoying it in the moment. I really was.
Okay. Anthony, did you enjoy this at all?
I really, really enjoyed it. When Ariana DeBose got announced, I was a little surprised. Not that I didn't think she would be capable, but her coming off of West Side Story and everything, it felt like a move that would happen a little bit later in her career. And for it to happen now, I was like, okay, cool. And then she comes on and I'm like, she's so charming and she's so fun and she has so much energy. I'm enjoying everything about this. And then similar to what Andrew said, the sing-along starts and you're like, all right, fine. And then you're like, I don't hate this though, because incredible singing voice, really great chemistry with Kate McKinnon. And yeah, by that point, I'm eating out of the palm of her hand. I'm like, whatever you're selling, I'm buying it, and I'm strapping it for the next hour. So I really, really enjoyed having her for the opening. She was great.
Yeah, for sure. And our friend Mike Murray in the chat does point out that this is the longest monologue of the season so far, about 5 minutes and 21 seconds. So very interesting to see. We also have our first cast member in a monologue this entire season, not counting obviously what we saw in the Paul Rudd cold opening / monologue. So that was interesting that they went from this perspective. But really this felt like, hey, Kate can do a lot of things that Ariana can do. So let's see what they can do together. Amanda, did you like it?
Remember how you said that Chicago Cubs joke was for you? This monologue was for me.
Okay.
I went to go see West Side Story at 10 o'clock in the morning by myself because I wanted to sing with my full chest along with every single song. Like I was singing along with them. That's how so my notes are basically like I missed the jokes because I was just singing my heart out. But I loved this. I also thought when Ariana DeBose was announced, I was like, Lorne Michaels is going to make her sing because he produces Schmigadoon, which she is also on. And there is no way he's not. I was actually shocked there wasn't more promotion for that because it's a Lorne Michaels project. But regardless, I think she's fantastic. I think this is the perfect way both to introduce her to the audience, to be like, no, this is a woman that you've kind of heard about, but singing songs that you definitely know. And then a way to also showcase, I really feel like Kate pitched this idea and they were like, yeah, just do that. And then it turned out really, really good and really well. And I loved this. Like, this was very charming to me. And yeah, I think she was great. Yeah.
Okay, good. I mean, I'm glad you all like this. I really like the energy. I think that energy in a monologue is super important for any SNL episode. You'll hear me say that week after week. I go back and I was chatting with our friend Andy Hoagland from Entertainment Weekly before about this specific monologue. And I said, like, when I think of energy in monologues and somebody going out and dancing, I always think of back in the day with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where he was like running and doing flips and breaking through walls and stuff like that. And that's when I think that really works, when the host just like shows off. And I do feel like we got to see Ariana show off a little bit here. I think the Kate McKinnon stuff didn't necessarily play as well for me. I loved the one line that she said where she was like, they know I dance. And I just felt like that was it. That was the one right there. Where
it was like, the best. That was the best line. Yeah.
That was the best line for me. So I felt like there was something there. I don't know if this fully hit for me, but I totally respect where everybody's like, oh, I love this particular version of a song-alog. I will bring up a couple comments from our chat. Our friend John Ananias says, I read the 2020 line as a joke. Delivery could have been clearer, but I'm not the only one who feels like this is the third take of 2020. Yeah, that is for sure. A lot of things in the chat. Our friend Carlos says, I think Ariana killed it overall, and really great to, just see, what you want to see from a host, especially a first-time host, is how they show off their chops, and you really got that in this monologue to start. So great on Ariana to do that there. Okay, let's get into our sketches. We got the NBA on TNT, and Anthony, I'll start with you on this one. I mean, I didn't know where they were going to go. I was trying to think through my head. I was racking through all the NBA storylines that were happening right now, and this took a little bit of a turn that I didn't expect. What do you think of it?
I loved it. I'm a huge basketball fan, so watching basketball through December was interesting to say the least, because it was like every other week, like, half of the team would be out with COVID, and it's like, well, we're still going to play. And it's like, you're going to play with 7 people for an entire game. Insane. But, the fact that like SNL wrapped that into it was dope. I was really, really impressed by Alex Moffat's Ernie Johnson. I thought that he actually did a really great job with that. Bowen Yang, obviously, whenever they give him an opportunity to do anything, like, again, I'm like right there for it. And his Yao Ming was really, really dope. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it throughout. I thought it was a really sharp sketch. I thought it was really, really funny. And yeah, no notes. Thought it was dope.
Yeah, for sure. The Bowen as Yao Ming thing, I was just like, oh, okay. Like, I guess they I don't know why they couldn't find somebody to play Shaq. And they were like, I don't know. It felt like a little bit weird, but then he just played it so funny. Like Bowen was so funny in this. Haynes, what were your thoughts?
Well, Bowen kind of stole the sketch, I think. Like he, especially when he was giving those one-word answers, and they're just so like cold and robotic. It was very hilarious to me. He came off kind of he was portraying Yao Ming a little bit like Lurch from not the Addams Family, the Munsters. So it had kind of that vibe. To me, it was all about the prosthetic hand. That giant hand that came in at the end on Keenan's head was very funny. But like Anthony mentioned, my very first note was, wow, that's a spot on Ernie Johnson. Yeah, that was very good. And so this sketch didn't like blow me away or anything. It's just kind of okay for me. But those were the highlights for me.
Yeah, Ernie Johnson previously played by Bill Hader a couple times, and Beck Bennett previously to after that. So there was all of that. Amanda, are you a basketball fan? What do you think of the NBA on TNT here?
I'm wearing ostrich feathers right now. Do you think I'm a basketball fan?
I wanted to ask.
Jonathan, I'm so sorry. I know I can name off the top of my head maybe like 7 basketball players, which is impressive for me.
Okay.
I do appreciate their costumes, though. I will say that. Love the basketball costumes. But anyway, I do know who Yao Ming was, so I did appreciate this sketch because I thought that was one of the funniest sight gags that this show has had in a very long time. I laughed at that every time they cut to Bowen and that just like that long torso. It sent me into conniptions. Like I was like, and 90% of the joke, like I did not know they were having NBA during these times. I just learned that. That makes this whole sketch even funnier to me, but I also love the fact that they decided to do 2 height jokes in the same sketch, because they had the one with of course with Bowen, but they also had the one later on with Heidi Gardner, and I was like, and now like looking back, I'm like, oh, they had to really double down on all the NBA height things because what else? It's low hanging fruit. But I mean, now I laughed. I'll say that. I laughed. I thought there were parts of this that I laughed even if I didn't understand the full context, which is enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, the irony is that like in future years, people are going to look back on COVID times and remember how the NBA and COVID were kind of intertwined in terms of the fact that when the NBA shut down, that's when a lot of things shut down from COVID in March of 2020. So I think that it's certainly an interesting perspective to take on what's happening now with Omicron. It's sort of like kind of what happened with SNL during the Rudd episode. I mean, everything shut down and they brought in all these other people. We didn't get Mikey Day and as the basketball player, or JJ as Dougie McCormick coming in to help with the Paul Rudd episode, but I do think that there was some parallels over here. I would say biggest missed opportunity of the night, and again on these shows I always get a little bit meta. I mean, there was an opportunity here to put Heidi Gardner as John Wozniak, Michael Jordan's security guard, in as one of the players here, and missed opportunity SNL to not reference her Last Dance character, even though I don't believe John Wozniak is I don't believe he's with us anymore. But I will say I was thinking about that throughout. I will point out a couple comments from the chat. We have our friend Casey Killingsworth who says Keenan and Bowen made this for him with some assists, pun intended, from Heidi, Mikey, Ariana, Alex, Kyle, and Chris. Our friend Alice Mitchell in the chat said during dress rehearsal, this is true. This was in the second half and then brought towards the front of the show as so it must have played pretty well. So good start to the show. This is a Streeter Seidel and Dan Bula piece. Okay,
I will just.
Yeah,
can I toss in a couple things? I did get a really strong laugh for some reason out of Mikey's line when he said, "So I've learned that basketball is an impossible sport played by gods," and something else. But I loved the idea, the concept that Yao just eats whole pumpkins. That was really funny to me.
With the stem.
Yes, yeah. I just thought that was a funny bit.
Very odd choice. Okay. Then we have to talk about this gritty sitcom reboot trailer. And wow, I have to tell you, maybe this is my hot take, but I actually think that this Chris Redd performance was possibly my favorite from the night. I mean, I just absolutely loved what I saw here. I've known about Bel Air. I mean, I was a Fresh Prince fan. And then I had a lot of questions and I've had the same thought. And then the fact that they went with this Family Matters angle, very interesting perspective here. Amanda, let me get your thoughts on it.
So a fun fact about me is that Urkel terrifies me. Like I don't know why, but ever since I was a child watching Family Matters, like literally, like Stephen Urkel scared the bejesus out of me.
Stefan Urkel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can't even get his name right because I'm so traumatized. But this hit to a dark part of my trauma and comedy. Where they meet together, and I was crying laughing. This was so good. Chris was perfect. When I just heard the opening notes of the Family Matters theme song, I wouldn't know they're not doing this. Because also, I would watch this show. I would absolutely watch this show, and I hope.
Oh, me too.
It. But I thought this was perfect, and yeah, I think it was perfect, and I think it was spot on for just the reboot fatigue. I was watching this on Peacock, so I was getting all the commercials for Saved by the Bell. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm exhausted. There's too much TV and too many characters I think about that I didn't know I had to care about again. I'm talking about Sex and the City. But I really loved this. And this, again, when I said this is a very Black episode of television, Family Matters is such a Black television show. And this was just when I was like, oh, they're going in hard on references that aren't for everyone here. And I really appreciated this, like on a writer's level in general. Yeah.
There was one reference though that they were missing, and I'll wait till we all get through it, but then I'll tell you guys. Anthony, were you a Family Matters guy?
Huge Family Matters fan. TGIF, like, come on, man. But also, like, being in Chicago, like, I constantly, like, you know, joke about the fact that, like, Carl Winslow, there's no way that man was patrolling and protecting the streets of the south side of Chicago. Like, there's no way. And on top of it, too, I actually have been watching some of the screeners for Bel Air for work. So, like, this has been, like, top of mind. So when it popped up, I was like, oh, this is gold. This is perfect. This is for me. It was spot on. It was so good. I thought that Keenan's Carl Winslow was really, really good, really sharp. Like you said, too, Chris Redd's Urkel was also really, really spot on. But no, it just came out of nowhere. It was totally unexpected, but it hit every single mark for me. I loved it.
Yeah. Haynes, like, what a night for Chris Redd. We were talking on the By the Number show earlier in the week about how he underratedly is just dominating these pre-tapes this season. And it's just another like home run, in my opinion.
It was a huge night. And like you said, you know, with you mentioned the Eric Adams thing might have been his, you know, most prominent role or most important role so far, you know, in his history. I mean, it was awesome, and it was fun, and it was dominating. I mean, you know, there are obviously people are asking questions, but it was almost, you know, a monologue from him. He's just talking the whole time. So not to, you know, go back to that sketch too much, but this one was easily my favorite of the night. This was by far my favorite of the night. It reminded me with the vibe very much of the Joker Oscar the Grouch spoof, which was very fun. And I loved that and thought that was brilliant as well. You know, just taking
on the David Harbour episode, I believe.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So taking these, you know, these funny things that we grew up with and then turning them in this dramatic fashion. I don't know why it gets such a rise out of me, but I was a huge Family Matters fan. And I admit I'm learning about the world right now. I did not know it was like a Black show or like not for everyone. I was so into Family Matters. No one told me. And I just loved Urkel, and I loved him as Stefan Urkel. I loved that version of himself. And so to me, this was just top to bottom. You can't get any better than this. They've really been crushing the pre-tapes this year. Like so many of my favorite sketches this year have been pre-tapes. It's really kind of blowing me away. So this was as good as it gets.
100%. And I'll just read out some stuff in the chat. I mean, Jillian Cedarholm, our friend from Entertainment Weekly, says, loved It's Saturday Night, says, love this. Roller Coaster Rider says, John, this was my favorite sketch of the night. Ike Moore says, I knew this was going to be Family Matters from the moment the piano began. Mm-hmm. And I will just say, for me, there was one thing that was missing again, and it was just that the reference to Judy Winslow disappearing and walking up the stairs and never to be seen again. Where was that? That was like the most famous Family Matters thing there is. Amanda, am I right?
Honestly, if they had added that, I wouldn't have been able to record this because I would have died. I would have collapsed. Like you would have been like, Amanda, where are you? Been like, I'm sorry, they killed me. SNL killed me tonight. So. Yeah,
100%. And yes, for those who haven't watched Family Matters, very famous that they just randomly sent one of the daughters upstairs and she was just never to be seen again, written out of the show. So would have loved to have seen a reference to that. Okay, let's move on to the next sketch. This is the Winter Formal, otherwise known as Ron and Don's Formal Emporium. And this is our Please Don't Destroy written sketch of the night. So Haynes, I'll start with you on this one. What were your thoughts on Winter Formal?
I thought this was pretty funny. I would say, yeah, I mean, it was one of the ones I enjoyed a lot throughout the night. You know, I think Sarah Sherman has been really fun in everything she's been in. I just think, I don't know that we've seen a ton of range from her so far, but she definitely pops And I just think that that she's been really good in the stuff we've seen her in. It's, I haven't mentioned so far, but this was kind of one of my main notes on the show is, it was a huge night for Chris Redd, but Andrew Dismukes was in a ton of sketches. And even though he wasn't always like super lead prominent, he had significant lines. He wasn't just standing in the background. So I felt like this was a really big night for Andrew Dismukes. And this was definitely one where he really did get to shine. He became the punching bag kind of throughout this sketch. It starts out, with them saying, that you can rent their son, Donovan as a date, basically, who won't try anything. Take our son Donovan, who won't even know where to start. And then of course, mentioning he's the kind of
I think Haynes, I think they said your daughter is guaranteed to remain unpenetrated. I think that was the line.
yes, that was definitely a line. Yes. And and they said he's one of those kids who has like one computer and two friends, and I really loved his delivery of shout out Scotty and Gavin. So this was really, I think it's very, it was a fun idea. The concept that he goes nuts, like for the song Get Low.
But yeah, I think Dismukes was playing that at one point during the TikTok pre-tape that they did in the Billie Eilish episode as well.
Oh, was it? Yeah. So
did a lot of 2000 songs.
Yeah. So I enjoyed this one a lot. I also really liked his line, where someone was telling a story about he was wearing this Los Pollos shirt, and he's like, I told you 1,000,000 times it's the restaurant from Breaking Bad. Like, he's just such a great nerd, and he's so he embodies that nerddom so well. So just really nailing that character. In fact, actually, so maybe it's just part of his core. I think during the Eric Adams sketch, doesn't Eric Adams call on him as the nerd or something like that? Doesn't he say like, so this was, I really enjoyed the sketch. Andrew Dismukes really shined. Pete, it was funny, but I thought Sarah Sherman really popped. But obviously, this sketch was for Andrew Dismukes, and he did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, Amanda, I've been thinking. Maybe this sounds weird. Don't pull this sound clip from the podcast. But I've been thinking about Andrew Dismukes' lips since the moment I saw them.
Same. They have. I'm disturbed. Okay. Didn't
you all know a kid like that
yes.
that just like always had stuff on his lips?
Yes. It's one I've been rewatching Happy Endings. There's an amazing episode where one of the characters' bosses always has food in his face and he doesn't know how to tell him. And trust me, I think of this concept all the time. I loved this sketch, but I didn't love it as much as other ones. It was probably lower in my ranking this episode, but not because it was a bad sketch, but just because I just kind of forgot about it. And I forget about things. I have ADHD. But like I thought, yeah, Andrew Dismukes he just did such good physical comedy here, and just let like the narration kind of just tell the story for him. And he just kind of had to exist to be miserable, but also I lose my mind to Get Low, so I want to go on a date with Donovan. So, just
okay,
saying.
if you can handle the lips, so no problem. All right, Anthony, what do you think of this?
Nah, Andrew definitely hit like a lot of it. Ultimately, I feel like it's Andrew Dismukes. Like his back has to hurt. He carried that entire sketch. He was hilarious. I know so many of those white guys that I went to high school and college with, where when Get Low comes on, it's like that's like their spinach to Popeye, and they just like come alive in a whole different way. And I'm like, yeah, like I totally know this dude. And also I have to note too, again, Ariana DeBose really like popping into the date. Loved her, and didn't mention this like in the previous sketch with Family Matters. Seeing her vocal work throughout the entire night with each individual character was so much fun. They all were different. They all were differentiated. This was very different than the character that she did of playing Urkel's mom. Fun seeing her pop up and just carry her on throughout. But nah, that was Andrew Dismukes' sketch. He crushed that.
Yeah, and our friend Casey in the chat points out that there was a lot of very similar Pete to Sandler vibes in this one. I totally agree. With the Sarah stuff, I really felt like it was very similar to
That thing's going right in the trash.
and that I got those vibes. So yeah, our friend Nigel in the chat also says, you know, a lot of 10-1 vibes. We may have had 3 sketches of the nights that were 10-1s from here. Look, I agree. I think there was better things from this evening. I don't know. I am happy to see that Sarah got a good role for the start of the second half of the season. So that was exciting for me. But I think Please Don't Destroy has written probably some stronger stuff this season so far. But I do really want to talk about our next sketch, which is Eric Adams' press conference. And Anthony, I'll start with you on this one. Obviously, you know, I've made the take that, you know, I did actually think that the Family Matters thing for Chris was my favorite of the night, but a huge role for Chris here. I think his most important role he's had since he's become a cast member on the show, just like a really well-defined role. And the wordplay on him, just outstanding.
Totally agree. You know, again, being here in Chicago, getting to see him, like, you know, come through from doing improv and doing stand-ups and then landing on SNL, like, you know, he's been like a hometown hero here. So it's been really great watching him, like, you know, continue to get, like, you know, better, getting opportunities on the show, getting his opportunity to be on Kenan. And tonight really did feel like, you know, the opportunity where it's like, oh, he's really sinking his teeth into some really dope character work. Andrew, I think you mentioned it earlier. It felt like, you know, like a monologue, like, you know, it's like he had this entire thing prepared, just like, you know, small moments in between. A lot of great moments with him and Ariana DeBose. Again, really great chemistry of them playing off of each other. Was not necessarily my favorite sketch because of the fact that it did feel like more of like a monologue than it did like a typical sketch. However, really fun to see something being given to him that felt like, you know, something he can kind of hang his hat on for probably the season, coming back as like, you know, a recurring character that he'll get to do later on. A really dope thing that'll mean a lot to a lot of, like, you know, New Yorkers that they've gotten to see in Eric Adams, and him being the first mayor with swag and the first one to wear a hoodie after he gets elected. No, it's a really great opportunity. And, you know, as a fan of Chris Redd, I could not be happier for him for that.
Amanda, I feel the facial expressions. So tell us what you thought.
Okay, this it wasn't my favorite sketch of the night. It was in my top 3 for sure, because I love Chris Redd. I've talked on this podcast before about how much I love Popstar Never Stop Never Stopping, which is like the movie that he did before he got SNL, which I remind people that it's like wild if you think about that. I love him so much. I think his impression of Eric Adams, I was like, oh, this is only going to develop further and become so much more curated, but he's already created this character, which is not far off from a real thing. But like, it's just, I mean, I hope Chris Redd makes merch with the word swag on it. I just hope that like becomes a thing for them and for him. I think I got when we talked, Anthony mentioned Ariana DeBose's voice work in this episode. This was the strongest accent impression work that she did all night. It was incredible. This was a character. Like I know this woman. Like this woman exists. And yeah, all of this things. But it was a little too monologue-y. It was again a little bit too long for me, just a little bit. But I think in general, I'm just so happy to see Chris Redd finally get his recurring, you know, and finally get that moment where he can just be that character over and over again. And can't wait to see the Eric Adams of 2024, I guess, for when Chris Redd is playing him, because it's going to happen. Yeah,
for sure. Ken says in the chat, Chris's best sketch performance so far of his entire run. Yeah, I have to agree. Really, that's my initial impression. Michael Riccardi in the chat says, extremely New York, so I loved it. Redd's performance, I think, sold it west of the Hudson, though. Yeah, definitely. Haynes, I felt like like I said, the wordplay, it was like Lin-Manuel Miranda-esque, the stuff that he was doing at such a fast pace.
It was great. You're right. It was fast-paced, great wordplay. And anybody who knows me knows that I love roasts. And he basically was just like roasting everyone the whole time. Like all these reporters would be trying to ask questions, and he kept calling them, you know, derogatory names. He called Heidi Princess Peach, and he called Bowen like Weird Eminem. I think, you know, he called Dismukes the nerd, and he called somebody Nut. It's like somebody was like, Thank you, Nut Nut. Oh yeah, and even Ariana got in on it at one point. She I think maybe it was Mikey tried to ask a second question, and she jumped on and was like, "Yeah, can I ask you a second question? That's how you sound." And I just love like those type of roasts and like burn jokes. So this was very fun to me. Yeah, like someone like everyone else has kind of said so far, I don't know if it was the best sketch of the night, but it was pretty fun. I enjoyed I enjoyed it for those reasons.
And exactly. And Mike Murray in the chat says fourth longest sketch of the season. So interesting that a long sketch, but it worked for a lot of people. Okay, so we get to Weekend Update. So interesting cuts from Weekend Update. We had Heidi Gardner cut from Weekend Update this week. We had Pete Davidson cut from Weekend Update this week. And given how much Pete we've seen this season, that's a little bit of a surprising choice. I don't know what he was planning on doing, but if somebody in the chat was addressed and saw Pete, let us know what Pete was doing on Weekend Update. But we got to see Chloe Fineman come in as Elmo with her feud with the pet rock Rocco. Okay, Amanda, anything here?
So I followed the Rocco versus Elmo feud deep. I was enthralled. I love other people's drama, so this was exactly my. And also I think Rocco knows what Rocco did. So like I don't think Rocco need to explain. Rocco knows what Rocco did. But in terms again, another one of those things where I was like, when Weekend Update ended after this, I was like, oh, that's it. That feels like a very niche topical, even for Weekend Update, And I love when Weekend Update gets niche and all that stuff. I'm going to talk about Chloe Fineman's Elmo impression for a bit because it wasn't great. I wish it was so much better. And I think if you're going to do an Elmo impression, you have to do it big because I fully expected Elmo to show up. I was expecting real life Elmo. Because they've gotten Big Bird. Why can't they get Elmo? He's not doing anything. He's living in the Bronx. And so, but like, I just think, I wish it was, I don't know. I wish this was stronger. I also think because we can up until here was so great, nonstop, back to back. The most I've loved Colin and Michael in a long time on camera. And so this was just like a weird womp womp. Like, it was like, I know my mom's going to text me tomorrow and be like, what's going on with Elmo? And I'm going to be like, that's how I know it didn't work in the way that I think they wanted it to. But this is a very niche episode in general.
For sure. I mean, Haynes, I would have bet everything I own that Chloe, when I heard that Chloe was going to be on Update tonight, that she was going to do Britney Spears. I'm stunned.
Right. And like, part of kind of my character, like as who I am as a person, like in the world and the way I present myself is like, I take like a certain amount of pride in like not following a ton of pop culture stuff. I'm super into SNL, but I take some sort of pride. I don't know why, and like not keeping up with this kind of stuff like Britney Spears and everything she's got going on. But even I've been hearing like all about Britney, And so that's a great point. We didn't see a lot of Chloe this episode. Like Amanda said, it did feel very cut off to me. It was clear that there was maybe some other stuff that was going to be another character that was going to be on. And I'm surprised that they went with this one because I didn't think it was particularly strong. I do slightly disagree with Amanda in that I thought the Elmo impression was pretty good. But I just wasn't head over heels in love with this. Now, I did think that Weekend Update was, pretty solid overall. They still had plenty of like good jokes. The Pope talking about how vaccinations are moral because of how closely priests work with kids. And, when Che made the joke about, Maya Angelou on the quarter, this is not what we meant when we demand change, and the Jefferson Davis thing to open it up, like this is all very funny to me. So they still have plenty of great Weekend Update jokes, and Weekend Update, is one of my favorite, if not perhaps my favorite component of SNL because I just love like fast, straight jokes. But I didn't love the Elmo thing. So yeah, that's.
Okay, Anthony, were you higher on the Elmo thing?
I thought that it was as best as they could have possibly done for a sketch on SNL. In Chloe's defense of the impersonation, I didn't want to hear a perfect impersonation of Elmo. I liked the subtle winks to it of like, he doesn't have control over his arms. She has the inflection of his voice and like, doing certain things. And if you've watched like, the video of him getting really upset of Rocco getting the cookie that he wants, that's the exact same cadence and everything that he says it in. So I'm like, it didn't have to be perfect. It was just within like, the ballpark that I was like, this is fine. And again, it's like, you're not going to do it in a way that's going to necessarily like, like recreate the wheel here. Like we've been watching this for the past 3 weeks. So it's like a joke would have sufficed. The fact that they went for the full impression, go for it. And I thought that they kind of hit that one well. So yeah, I didn't have any issue with it. I thought that it was fine. It was as good as it was possibly going to be. But overall, I did really enjoy Weekend Update. It's always great when they come back from the holidays because they have a lot of material to like, pick and choose from. The joke about this is not what Black people meant when they said they demand change was one of the funniest things of the entire night. The delivery, everything was spot on. So yeah, no issues with the Elmo overall. And I thought the Weekend Update was solid.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I agree. I didn't necessarily love this, but I did love seeing Chloe Feynman on Weekend Update. I think in a night where we didn't have Cecily obviously out doing her one woman show, Iggy and Punky, I don't believe were in the building. So I think opportunities for people like Sarah Sherman and for Chloe Feynman and to see them get these roles, I think are super important to their growth and development as SNL cast members overall. So nice to see them get the opportunities. Definitely. I will say for the Pete Davidson thing, he from our friend Ellis Mitchell in the chat, who I believe was at dress rehearsal, said that Pete talked about the Great Resignation with references to Andrew Cuomo. So that was interesting. Would have been interesting to see. I wonder if that ends up on YouTube. We also have Heidi Gardner, who is going to do another edition of Kelly Party. So those are the two things that were cut from Weekend Update this week. All right, let's talk about it.
One more thing about Weekend Update, though. My favorite, because I loved that change, that Black people asking for change joke. That was truly, I cried. But I also loved the throw from the lesbian bar giving COVID tests to the Taco Bell joke to the monthly, like when Colin was just like, I can't believe I'm saying this right now. And he was like, and I was like, that's a really good, like, it's a joke that only he could say in that moment. And I was like, yeah, that's a good joke for the ladies, for the women. Okay.
For sure.
So for women only.
Yeah, as somebody who has to make very awkward transitions sometimes on these podcasts, I understand where you're coming from, Colin. But I will say, I have to point out, big applause for Colin Jost tonight, obviously, who was not there, for the Christmas show and had Tina Fey replace him. So that was cool to see. I know he gets ripped on a lot, but it was nice that he got some nice applause for being back in the building and back with Che. Okay, let's talk about what we saw from after a Weekend Update. And we'll start with this new Governess sketch where we had a Sound of Music parody, one of many that SNL has done over the years, with Kate McKinnon returning as Julie Andrews. We had Chris, Andrew, Chloe, Sarah, and Bowen as the kids, all singing new versions of Do Re Mi by Ariana, who came in as the new Governess. Okay, so Haynes, I'll start with you on this one. What were your thoughts?
It was okay. It looked, it was produced well. They put a lot into it, the costumes and the dancing and the singing and everything. It just didn't have a ton of jokes like that made me laugh out loud or anything. Doe, a thing that Homer says when he's mad, that's funny. And listen, they had a handful of them,
and not JAJ's child, Homer Simpson.
Right. And what else? Fa, a fart without the T. Ray Romano, everybody loves him or something. I mean, these are they're kind of funny. But to me, it was just a handful of mostly mediocre jokes. I don't have a ton to say about this one. I didn't hate anything about it. I wasn't like angry that I was watching it. I just wasn't inspired, and it never really uplifted me at any point. I do like dark humor, and I like that, this is the first time, I think Bowen yelled like Greta spoke for the first time since our mother's gruesome death or something. So that was kind of funny. But I wasn't in love with it.
Yeah. Underrated night for Bowen. I did like a lot from him tonight. Anthony, what about you?
Similarly, I thought that it was fine. I smiled. I didn't necessarily laugh out loud. But I do have to preface by saying I've never seen The Sound of Music. So it didn't necessarily like land for me because I didn't catch the references. But even so, I just kind of felt like, this is fine. This is cool. This is cute, but not necessarily like, the funniest moment of the entire show.
Yeah, for sure. Our friend Julie in the chat says she doesn't understand how these sketches of The Sound of Music always are recurring, and I don't get it either. I don't know, but it seems like they want to play with this a lot, and the concept doesn't always play. So, Amanda, what do you think of it?
Again, I love The Sound of Music, so I really do.
Well, me too. My mom's favorite movie, but I just don't.
Yeah.
I was waiting for something that like did something crazy with it, and I didn't.
No, and okay, I sometimes when I watch SNL sketches, I wonder, I'm like, what was the original joke here? What was the first thing? And to me, it was the Queen Latifah joke. Like that, the building on the Latifah joke, that was, to me, I was like, oh, they came up with that and wrote an entire sketch around it. And
it's a legit good point. So it would be a great word. Yeah.
It's a great joke. And it's like la, the note that follows, so like that made me laugh very hard. I was like, yeah, they did get really lazy with that line, even in the musical.
It's great commentary.
And I just wish. I feel like this was the one they swapped the NBA sketch with. I feel like this was meant to be the top of the episode. And I'm glad it wasn't, because it was not as strong. It would not have been strong at the top of the episode. It's barely strong to a post-weekend update. I don't know. It was a very there sketch. That's all I'll say that. It was very
I can tell you that in the original Dress Rundown, this was prior to Weekend Update. So
I'm glad it wasn't.
Yeah, that is that is interesting. Our friend Rusty in the chat says, why is The Sound of Music so present in SNL lore? I wonder the same thing. But,
gay men and women, guys. Gay men and women. Okay. And also the curtain jokes. Got it. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of gay men and women, let's talk about the Sappho sketch. So it's transitions, Amanda.
Easy transition. Easy transition.
Yeah. I did it. Okay. All right. So we get to see Ariana and Kate again together as a duo here, translating Greek mythology. And Anthony, let me ask you, what did you think of Sappho?
This one didn't do it for me, if I'm being totally honest. They have great chemistry. It was really fun watching Ariana and Kate again, riffing off of each other. But I don't know. I just didn't really love this one. It was very, very quick, which I did appreciate, because there's nothing worse than when you don't connect, or something doesn't resonate and it goes a little bit too long for your liking. But this one, it wasn't for me. This one just wasn't for me.
Okay, Amanda, was this for you?
No. Okay, I really wanted it to be, because I love queer content on SNL. I love when they make really deeply jokes that are just for queer people, and I felt like a sketch for queer people. And I was like, I get it, but it was just another sketch where I was like, the joke's done in 3 bits. It doesn't need to be as long or as extended as it was. And in this case, yeah, it was just fine. I was a little. I think for these two powerhouses, they deserve more than this. How about that?
Yeah. And I think, Haynes, what we talk about on the SNL Network a lot, whether it's in the roundtables, the hot take shows, we talk about escalation and how they do escalation in certain sketches. And I think that what happened here in this sketch was we saw, we broke up Helena, please get your sandals out of here. And that gave me a really good laugh, right? And then I was waiting for the extra escalation over here. And I don't know that we got it. So did you end up enjoying this one? Because for me, I had moments here. I just don't know if it went all the way to where I wanted to go.
I thought it was pretty fun, but it was, it was nowhere. It was definitely toward the bottom of the list for me. I basically agree with kind of what everyone else has said so far. Like you said, the escalation didn't exactly go anywhere. It was, it was kind of the same joke over and over again. But it is fun to, touch on, kind of these, fun. I don't know if so it just her saying that we're maxed out on dogs, and then it's been hell living with you, or it's been hell knowing you for a month, but please move in with me, and then and now you've lived with me for 3 weeks and it's been total hell, but please marry me. So I know there are a lot of jokes about about lesbians always wanting to move in quickly and stuff. That's a joke that Kate's made before and stuff. And so it seemed like they touched on a lot of those classic jokes and I enjoyed laughing with them. But you're right, there wasn't a ton of escalation. And the very end really is the part that fell the flattest for me when Mikey started to step in, and I just didn't feel like a big bang at the end. Like, even if there's not a lot of escalation, at least give me like one good one to end on. And I didn't get a great one to end on. So I wasn't in love with it, but I got a few chuckles.
Agreed there, Andrew, where I did feel like that was where it was going to escalate. And I was like, okay, like maybe this is where it lands. And then it just done. And I was like, wait, that, huh? Yeah. So no, not, yeah. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get to our last sketch of the night, which is kitchen staff. And this was interesting. We saw Ariana and James Austin Johnson and Heidi as the manager with a lot of lure. Andrew Dismukes as a kitchen staff, and Alex Moffat in this one. Okay, let's wrap it up. Amanda, what do you think of our final sketch of the night?
I don't understand what this was. I don't. And like I love a 10-1. I love like the last weird. This one it was just not for me. Like, especially after all of the greatness that came from this episode, this just felt like they had some really niche sketches this week, but this one felt like it was for like 3 people, and I was not one of them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Haynes, the second half of the episode was a little bit weaker than what we usually see, so I'm surprised.
Yeah, I actually, I'm watching this episode, and I'm making a few notes, and I had actually written least favorite beside the Elmo bit, and then this happened. So I wasn't in love with the sketch. I wonder how much of this, they're obviously referencing Texarkana a lot, and I feel like I've heard Andrew Dismukes do that type of kind of accent that they used in this, like in other sketches. And I wonder, how much of that just comes from like Andrew's personal experience and stuff. And so maybe this is really personal and fun for him, and good for him. He had a great night, but yeah, it just wasn't, I don't know. It just wasn't that funny to me.
Yeah. I would love to know from the chat. I mean, if there are people that like the sketch, I mean, I didn't hate it. I just didn't like get a lot from it. So I would love to know if there are people in the chat who felt otherwise, for sure, because there were, I think, moments in the second half of the episode, but I don't know if any individual sketch, like the quality compared to some of the stuff we saw in the first half of the episode. Anthony, how do you feel about kitchen staff?
Did not do it for me. I'm not really a huge fan of sketches where it's like we're just kind of like, riding the joke of how like, things sound and just kind of making noises. And yeah, it's like the whole time I'm like waiting for the joke, and I kind of felt like I wasn't in on something. I was like, wait, is there something that happens with Texarkana that like I should be more familiar with? Is this like a regional thing where everybody sounds like this? I've never heard this before. Yeah, and on top of it too, it's like you had such a great ensemble for the end of it that I was like, this could have really been something interesting and something fun. So for that to be the last sketch of the night, it was just like, oh, I'm kind of like let down, because I felt like a lot of the pieces were there, and I'm just like, what was I supposed to get that I just didn't?
Yeah, that's fair. I do see some people in the chat who did enjoy the second half of the episode, so I just want to say, like, point out to them. I think Ken said it, definitely liked the second half. Rusty said he liked the second half as well. So yeah, I mean, if you guys liked it, that is really great. I do feel probably out of the 3 in the second half, I think Sappho was probably my favorite of those 3, but I would love to re-explore these oftentimes as you get into the later half of the episode. And obviously we're doing this live, don't always have the same reactions on Saturday versus Monday, but we'll talk through it as we get through to the end of the week. I'm also going to say, again, I know we don't normally get too much into music on the Hot Take Show, but I'll say Bleachers, I mean, coming in last minute to replace Roddy Ricch, obviously. Bleachers crushed it tonight. I mean, thumbs up to everything that they did. So great job to Jack Antonoff and everybody from Bleachers. I will also say congrats to Ego Wodem for her 200th sketch tonight, which was the cold open. So congrats to Ego. That's a great milestone for a cast member in her first few years. So awesome job. Okay, let's do our ratings. We do these out of 10. So I will go around the panel. I'll ask you for your ratings from the night. Chad, I'll also ask you from your ratings. I'll try my best to read as many as possible. Oftentimes these come in very quickly and I can't put them all up on screen tonight, but I will try my best to read them out. Okay, Amanda, let me start with you. Give me your rating out of 10 for our first SNL of 2022.
I'm going to give it a 7.5. Possibly, I could be thrilled we push it up into the 8 category. It wasn't great, but considering what we were coming off of, that gives it 2 extra points just because of what we were coming off of. Like,
it's all relative. It's all relative.
Yeah, it's like if I have to compare it, guys, we're going off of this the whole semester, and if I'm going off of the last midterm, yeah, you got a B plus, a solid 80% in this case. Yeah, I would say 7.5, 8. It had some really great standout moments, but a lot of it was a little bit too long and a little bit. And that second half was not great. So
yeah,
7.
And I'll try and read these out. Yeah, perfect. And I'll try and read these out in between each panelist. So Bill says 7.5 out of 10. Nicole says 7.9. We have Ken, who says I probably give it a 6 out of 10. Michael says an 8 out of 10 with Chris Red as the MVP. Ichthala says 7 out of 10. Ariana was such a light, but the cast felt a little bit off. All right, Haynes, let's get your rating.
I admit I'm a little surprised at some of the ratings you're reading off already, because lots of the time I really kind of land in the zone with a lot of our listeners and a lot of our fellow podcasters. I'm a little below that today. I kind of felt like this was like a 6.5. Amanda's making a little bit of a face here. Like 8. I kind of couldn't believe that you were comfortable going quite that far.
I take the 8 back. I said it's a solid 7.5.
Okay.
The 8 I took back.
I don't want you to feel attacked just because I have a different opinion.
Compared to Paul Rudd, it was an 8 compared to Paul Rudd.
Right.
Everything else 7.5.
Listen, that is a great point. Like if it's all relative. If we're comparing it to last week, yeah, it's a million times better. But to me, yeah,
last week.
Or excuse me, the last episode. Where have you been? Yeah, I'm busy. To me, it was like a 6.5. I'll give it a C plus or something. C plus.
Okay. Okay, which is C plus. Got it.
6.5, whatever.
yeah, got it. A lot of things / Carlos in the chat says 7, but normally would be a 6, but extra point because of the full episode. Liv La Raj says 6 out of 10 for this one. Jersey Luck a little bit lower, says 3 out of 10. Very little work for me tonight. It felt like a party for theater kids, and he is not a theater kid. Rusty says 9 out of 10. Opposite. Very excited for next week with Will Forte, which we'll talk about in a second. And someone I don't know how to pronounce the name, Manskin. We'll figure it out during the week, but someone who's very into Eurovision, he's excited for that. I'll have to go rewatch the Daryl Hyman pronunciation of that one. Anthony, what was your rating out of 10?
7.5. Okay. For Ariana DeBose, fantastic. I think for her to be like her first opportunity doing the show, really got to show off some of the character work that she can do. Really great that we got to hear her like vocals, and thought her monologue was really, really solid. I thought that the opening of the show was really, really great overall. And yeah, just did not stick the landing the way that I wanted it to. But in comparison to most of the episodes from the season, and keeping in mind the last episode that we got, though that was not their fault, that was COVID's, I would still say this is about a 7.5. It's still solid overall. It still really showed what, the cast and what the crew can do when they put together really, really solid efforts. That Family Matters sketch is probably going to be like one of my favorites for the entire season. And yeah, it was just sharp. It was on time. It was everything that you want it to be. So yeah, 7.5. I think that it was solid. It makes me really, really excited for next week. And yeah, I think it's going to be a bright spot in the overall season.
For sure. Roller Coaster Rider says 2 out of 10. Funny Urkel and nothing else. G Cafe says 5 out of 10 with a full point for Bleachers. Fair enough. Nigel says no dot sketches, but nothing outstanding. 7 out of 10. Casey says lure out of 10. Ellis says 7 out of 10. Bonus point for Bleachers. Scott says I think it's an 8. So I will say for myself, I think I'm probably going to give this a 6 out of 10. I think this is an above average episode. I think this is there was a lot of good here. The back half for me was probably one of my weaker back halves of the season. Obviously, it's hard to watch the episode and not think about what's going to be happening next week. And we're going to talk a lot on Monday on the roundtable about the Will Forte episode. So I don't want to get into it too much here, but I will say I want to give our panelists, as a former cast member coming in for the first time, I want to give our panelists an opportunity to just have a quick word on what we're going to see next week in chat as well. If you want to give us your excitement for next week, you please let us know in the chat your thoughts. But Amanda, I'll start with you. Thoughts on Will Forte coming in next week?
I am so happy that my weird husband is coming back to this show. I have not watched MacGruber yet. It's actually on my list of things to do tomorrow while I wash my hair. Yes. And I truly I love Will Forte so much, and I'm so happy he's coming back. I was so happy to get that little blip of him and Seth Meyers from Late Night last month. So I just think it's if Jason Sudeikis has been one of the best season episodes of this far, I can't wait to see what they hand over to Will Forte. Yeah, 1000%.
100%. Yeah, for sure. Haynes, quick word on Forte coming in next week.
I'm almost speechless. Like, what can you say? It's so freaking exciting. I don't know where to begin. He's just produced so much quality content on SNL and off. In everything he touches, I've never seen him fail. I've never not laughed at Will Forte. Like, he is gonna rock this from top to bottom. I'm ecstatic. I'm at a loss for words. Some people kind of predicted this. With MacGruber, and it's just so great that this is finally going to happen. I'm absolutely thrilled.
Yeah, for sure. Anthony, your thoughts?
I'm excited. I always love a good homecoming episode. I love Will Forte. I'm in the minority that thought that the MacGruber movie was actually very good, and I do enjoy the series as well. And like Andrew said, Will Forte, he delivers. He really comes through. He's a solid comedic actor. And yeah, who doesn't enjoy a homecoming episode when you get to see an alumni come back? It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, 100%. And I have to say, I mean, we'll talk about this more, but I actually thought this was never going to happen. I thought this was a dream, for me, because really, I know that I just never felt like he was fully appreciated by the show in the way that the fan community always appreciated him. And to show that they actually I know that Peacock is the one that, is the network that is now has MacGruber on it. But for me, I was so surprised and so wonderfully delighted to see that they gave Will Forte a chance. To me, I was trying to think of comparisons between former cast members that were beloved and then never got a chance to come back and host. And I think maybe to Kevin Nealon or something from the second golden era of the show. But that cast that Will Forte was a part of, he's pretty much the last one from his generation not to host the show. And I will tell a very quick story. I know it's late, but I'll just say that he came up to Just for Laughs in 2018 in Montreal, and I met Will Forte there, and I had a conversation with him. And I told him, "Hey, you're my favorite cast member. You make me laugh more than anyone who's ever been on SNL. Would you ever host the show?" And he said to me, in a heartbeat, I would love to host SNL. It's the one thing that I dreamed about doing as a cast member on the show. Every week I was there, I always thought, what if I came back to host one day? And I said, do you think that you'll ever happen? He says, they haven't called me. They haven't called me. I don't know why. They called all my friends. They haven't called me. And the fact that they called him now, I'm just so happy for Will Forte. So I can't wait to get into it, to talk about it all throughout next week. And we'll continue our coverage of Ariana DeBose first before we get into all that, but just very happy for Will Forte. Okay. Let's talk about what's coming up this week on the SNL Network. And like I said, we have a great roundtable coming up on Monday. And let me just say, if you haven't checked out our roundtables before, check out this one, because not only is it our Ariana DeBose and Bleachers roundtable, but it is the 100th episode of the SNL Network on Monday night. We've gotten to 100 podcasts.
Congratulations!
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to all the podcasters and all the listeners that have helped us get to 100 episodes. It will be a very special roundtable. We'll be tweaking the format a little bit. We'll be having some special guests pop in for this roundtable. So you're definitely going to want to be there to watch it. I think it'll be a very fun experience as we break down. We're still going to break down everything from Ariana DeBose and Bleachers, but it'll be a fun celebration of the SNL Network as well. If you'd like to join us on Wednesday, we're going to be having our patron feedback show where we answer your SNL questions. We will have a Google form up on Twitter the day before, so just fill in those SNL questions. And I'll be live with two of our wonderful patrons, Matt and Ekmal, to answer those questions and talk about what's happening in social media. On Thursday, Rebecca and Nicole are back with Hollywood Dish. If you haven't checked out Hollywood Dish, it is a very fun show. You would have learned all about what's happening with Novak Djokovic, what's happening in Pete Davidson's life, a lot of fun stuff that's happening in pop culture. They talked about it on the Thursdays before a new SNL episode to be updated, so you get all the jokes as you watch Saturday Night Live. And then in 1 week from tonight, we'll be back here for the Hot Take Show for Will Forte and musical guest Maneskin. the Italian rock band. I know Beggin'. I know Beggin's a great song. So it'll be fun to talk through everything that we get to see from Will Forte's episode. And I hope you will join us live next week. Okay. Amanda Mitchell, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Where can the listeners reach out to you?
If you want to find me on Twitter and Instagram, I'm at Loch Ness Manda, the scary Scottish monster. If you want to go listen to my podcast, I host a podcast about America and Australia's Next Top Model called America's Next Top Best Friend. And you can also read my work over at Refinery29. That's me. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Haynes, where can everybody reach out to you?
I'm always on Twitter at SNL Has a Cast and Instagram at Candrew Attitude. I'm still proud of that pun.
Of course. Anthony, thank you for joining us, man. Where can people reach out to you?
I am at Air Conway on Instagram. Best place to reach me at.
Absolutely. Okay. So if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at Jon Schneider 24 on any platform. I always love to talk to all of the listeners and anybody who loves Saturday Night Live and, debate everything we get to see from the show. You can follow us at the SNL Network, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. We're posting lots of fun content in 2022. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast. If you haven't subscribed tonight and you're checking out our podcast for the first time, please make sure to subscribe and do that on either YouTube or any podcast platform you listen to the show to. All right. Thanks for joining us live, everybody. And if you're listening after the fact, appreciate you all. We'll have a good one. And I'll see you on Monday night for our 100th SNL Network episode. Bye, everybody.